What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to cover some of the aspects that you need to know for demonstrating pilotage and dead reckoning on your private pilot's practical test. So in general, what the DPE is going to ask you to do is they're going to ask you to prepare a nav log and fly for a particular scenario, and you're going to have to come up with the route and make sure that you calculate the proper cruising altitudes and navigating any kind of complex Bravo airspace to get to where you're trying to go. What this means in the real world when you do your check ride is you're more than likely going to start your check ride by flying this pre-planned route. So during this, they're looking for a few things. They're going to make sure that you know how to do pilotage and dead reckoning. Pilotage is essentially being able to fly by using visual landmarks that you're going to fly to at each point, and dead reckoning, flying using estimated time, speed, and distance to get to your intended point. So some of the common knowledge questions they can ask you about, are shown here. They may ask you questions about, magnetic compass turning errors, about your route, your altitude, what checkpoints you're going to use, why you might want to use visual checkpoints if you're a VFR pilot versus planning a route with GPS waypoints. I would make sure to use only visual waypoints. And then they're also going to ask you how you determine certain things like the heading for the route, what speeds you're going to fly at, the course, if you have a strong winds, do you need a wind correction angle, how this is going to affect your speed, your estimated time of arrival, time en route, distance, and true airspeed. But what I really want to focus this video on is the actual practical aspect of what this looks like when you're trying to demonstrate these skills, because you're going to be in the plane with this DPE and you're going to want to fly using your nav log. So we're going to really focus more on these skills below. As you're flying using the nav log that you prepared, you're going to want to make sure to start a timer right when you start rolling. I'll mention that a few times. The timer is very important. When you do that and you take off, you're going to then start navigating, leave the traffic pattern, and then you're going to start flying to your first intended VFR waypoints that you've planned for your route. While you're doing so, you'll have on your nav log your headings and your times and distance that you calculated, and you're going to want to make sure you're crossing those intended waypoints at your pre-calculated times, or as they say here, navigate by means of pre-computed headings, ground speeds, and elapsed time. The tolerances for demonstrating these skills are shown here. You're going to want to make sure that you can verify your position within 3 nautical miles of your flight planned route. You're also going to want to make sure that you arrive at your en route checkpoints within 5 minutes of the initial or revised estimated time, or ETA, provided by the destination estimates. Now this is important because they say, or revised. So if you get up there and ATC sends you a different direction and it completely throws off all your calculations, which it might, it definitely did on my check ride, you might have to add some time to your route. For me it was simple. They just basically had us hold an extended upwind for about a minute. So I just added a minute onto all my calculations. So when you cross certain waypoints, you just say, initially we calculated 12 minutes. We're crossing at 13 minutes. We're right on schedule. And we'll get into a little bit of kind of how you want to rehearse and talk about crossing these waypoints as you're flying to demonstrate these skills to the DPE. And also one crucial skill that is very important, you're going to want to make sure that you maintain the appropriate altitude of plus or minus 200 feet and a heading of 15 degrees. So for my check ride, the DPE asked me to plan a route that went all the way up to Mojave Airfield from Montgomery Gibbs. Ultimately, we need to go north. So in San Diego, there's really 2 ways unless you're going to get Bravo clearance. You're either going to go out over the coast and you're going to fly through a little VFR corridor here. That's between 3,200 feet and 6,800 feet. And then you'll fly under the shelf and ultimately get away from the Bravo. Or you're going to fly to the east and go around the Bravo or cut just under these shelves here. So for me, I decided to plan a flight that actually went to the east. And now I did this for a few particular reasons. I just want to share those here because I feel like they really helped me on my check ride. So I wanted to avoid any kind of low level overcast that was typical for showing up on the coast that time of year, and just completely avoid it by flying to the east. In addition, I did most of my training over on the east side, so I was really familiar with a lot of the landmarks of this area, so I just figured I would fly to the east because it seems to be less busy. So as I mentioned, typically the DBEs will ask you to fly these routes, and as they're doing so, eventually they'll terminate the flight somewhere and tell you to go ahead and go into maneuvers and start, carrying out the rest of the check ride. I knew if I flew to the east, he'd probably terminate the flight somewhere, around Ramona, which is exactly what he did. And we then went into doing the maneuvers that we have to demonstrate for the check ride. So here's my nav log that I built for the flight. So I have shown here my actual paper nav log that I used for my check ride flight. So to give you kind of an idea, we're basically going to depart, and then our first point that we're looking for is going to be our crosswind. So we can see that here we're going to depart. We're going to climb to around 900 feet where we're going to turn crosswind. That's going to be a heading 278. When we turn to our crosswind, we're going to turn to a heading of about 9, and we're going to be on there for a very short period of time. And then the route really kicks off when we aim for our first visual landmark, which is going to be COWLES Mountain. So from our downwind leg, we're going to climb to 3,500. We're planning to cross 3,500 right as we get to COWLES Mountain. That's why it's our top of climb. And to get to COWLES Mountain, we're going to have a heading of about 9.2. That's going to be this leg right here. And that leg is going to be 6 nautical miles, which will take us about 5 minutes to fly, because for the majority of the time we're going to be in our cruise climb, targeting 85 knots of airspeed. And then the total trip time, these are really the highlighted sections are really the important things you want to look at. It should take us around 6.9 minutes to cross COWLES Mountain. So ultimately what we want to say when we are turning on downwind is, all right, our next waypoint is COWLES Mountain. We're going to visually point it out and point to COWLES Mountain. We're going to say we're going to turn to a heading of 9.2, and we should arrive at COWLES Mountain at about 7 minutes, and we're going to be cruising at 85 indicated airspeed. And then if you have a quick way to reference your ground speed during the flight, you might as well call that out and let your DPE know that you understand the difference between airspeed and ground speed, and you know how to find out what your ground speed is. So as you come to COWLES Mountain, you're going to let your DPE know that we're about to pass COWLES Mountain. When you do, you're going to look for your next visual waypoint, which is going to be Lake Jennings. You're going to fly a heading of 6.2 to get there. The leg is going to be 8 nautical miles. It should take you about 4.5 minutes to get to Lake Jennings from COWLES Mountain, which will put your total en route time at around 11 minutes. And then you might want to mention you're going to level off at 3,500, and you're going to plan to cruise 115 knots indicated. During that cruise, you could also reference your ground speed and make sure that you're going to make your times. As you're getting closer to Lake Jennings, you're going to want to point out that, Lake Jennings is coming up. You visually see it. Following Lake Jennings, you're going to then turn towards the town of Alpine. You're then going to have a heading of 9.7. You're going to climb to 5,500, and you want to point out the distance is going to be about 5 nautical miles, and it should take you about 13.5 total minutes to get there. And we'll just leave it at that, because in reality, we're probably not going to finish the rest of this trip, so we'll just hop into the flight and see how it goes. Montgomery Tower, Cessna 737 Hotel Yankee, holding short runway 28 right, ready for a eastbound departure.
Cessna 737 Hotel Yankee, Montgomery Tower, standby. Bonanza 903 Echo, contact SoCal departure, safe flight.
93 Echo, switching departure, good evening.
Cherokee 886, follow the upwind Cessna right, traffic approved, runway 28 right, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, we'll follow that traffic in the upwind.
Cessna 7 Hotel Yankee, runway 28 right, line up white, traffic 1.5 miles right base.
Line up in white, 28 right, 7 Hotel Yankee. Alright, mixture's going full rich, lights are on, landing lights on.
Departure H Alpha, traffic ahead on final for the parallel.
Traffic contact 25H Alpha.
Cessna 7 Hotel Yankee, follow the upwind Cessna right down when departure approved, runway 28 right, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, runway 28 right, 7 Hotel Yankee. Alright. T's and P's are in the green. 40.
Cherry Charlie Alpha, runway 28 right, clear touch and go.
28 right, clear touch and go, 25H Alpha.
Alright, so as mentioned before, we want to get a lot of points with our DPE, and we can do that by calling out data that we've calculated for our Nav Log, and we can cross-reference that with our avionics. So the things that we want to call out is our fix or our heading, our altitude that we want to fly at or climb to, and our airspeed and ground speed we want to be at. We also want to point out the distances to our next leg and how long it'll take us to fly each leg, and then also our total en route time. So for example, we're going to get to COWLES Mountain at 12 minutes. We plan to get to Lake Jennings at a total time of 20 minutes, and so on and so forth.
Cherokee 886, runway 28 right, clear touch and go, traffic on final for the parallel.
Clear touch and go, 28 right, and we're looking for that traffic on final 886.
Montgomery Airport information Echo now current, wind calm, altimeter 3012.
Alright, looking at our nav log, now we're going to turn crosswind to a heading of 9 for 1/2 minutes, and we're climbing to 1400. Okay, looking at our nav log, we're going to go ahead and turn downwind. We're going to keep the climb coming through 3,500 feet. We're going to have a heading of 9-2. And we're going to head directly to COWLES Mountain for our next VFR waypoint. We can see on our nav log that COWLES Mountain is 6 nautical miles away. It'll take us 5 minutes to get there, and we should arrive at a total time of 6.9 minutes.
Cessna 20 Golf Fall, Cherokee Head, base to final, runway 28 right, clear touch and go.
Follow plane ahead, clear touch and go on 28 right, 20 Golf.
Cessna 20 Golf, the traffic to follow is turning short final.
Looking for that traffic, turning short final. 20 Golf.
Cessna 20 Golf, additional traffic opposite downwind for the parallel.
For traffic, 20 Golf.
Alright, climb checklist, landing lights off. I'm going to leave it on. Mixture is full rich, and en route climb at 85. Okay, looking at our Garmin, we can see that our next waypoint, COWLES Mountain, is 4 nautical miles away. It's going to take us about 2 minutes, and our ground speed is 110 knots, and we're on a good eastward heading. So we're right on track. Since we're using pilotage, I want to point out that COWLES Mountain is right off our nose. It's that rightmost peak of the mountain chain ahead.
Cessna 20 Golf, traffic ahead opposite base to final for the parallel.
Looking for traffic, 20 Golf, I do not have them in sight.
Departure 8 Charlie Alpha full, Cessna head to right base, runway 28 right, clear touch and go. 28 right, clear touch and go, 2 minutes Charlie Alpha.
I got the traffic in sight, 20 Golf.
Okay, we can see our next waypoint, COWLES Mountain, is 2.2 nautical miles away. It'll take us about 1 minute and 12 to get there. Following that, we're going to turn towards our next waypoint, which is going to be Lake Jennings. We're going to have to turn to a heading of 6-2. That leg's going to be 8 nautical miles. It'll take us 4.5 minutes, giving us a total en route time at Lake Jennings of 11 minutes planned. We're going to hold this altitude at 3,500 and this ground speed at 110 knots.
Sending reach November 75733, over Lakeside 3,500, slow flight. Sending reach.
San Diego Northeast, Cessna 346 Charlie Papa over Paul, 5,800, slow flight.
Just past COWLES Mountain, we can see Gillespie Airfield. When we get closer, we'll switch over to their ATIS to pick up the altimeter, and then we'll listen to their tower just to make sure that they don't have anything to tell us, but we shouldn't have a problem because we're above their airspace at 3,500 feet, with their airspace extending up to only 2,400 feet. Here comes our turn. We're directly over COWLES Mountain right now. You can see the peak right below us. We're going to go ahead and make that turn to a heading of 6-2, and we're going to hold this altitude and head directly towards Lake Jennings. Alright, there's Lake Jennings off our nose.
San Diego Coastal, Cessna 738 Alpha Zulu at 4,500 over Del Mar, heading southbound, practicing slow flight.
We're making great time. You can see by our nav log we plan to cross COWLES Mountain in 7 minutes. And it is right now 7 minutes, so we are right on schedule.
San Diego Coastal, Crew Track 203, we're over the Oceanside Pier at 1000 doing turns around a point.
It's a good place for turns. Alright, we're just over Gillespie, so we're about halfway to Lake Jennings. When we get to Lake Jennings, we're going to make a slightly southward turn to a heading of 97. We're going to be heading towards Alpine. It's a little city that's able to be spotted just off the 8. It's going to take us 5 nautical miles. It should take us about 2.5 minutes to get there. And we're going to climb up to 5,500.
San Diego East, that's 5760 Papa, just east of VA House, around 6,300, headed into Gillespie, San Diego East.
Alright, there's Gillespie behind us, just as we pass it. Just off our nose, you can start to see Lake Jennings.
San Diego Coastal, Crew Track 203, we're at 1,000 feet over the Oceanside Pier doing turns around a point. San Diego Coastal.
Alright, looking at our Garmin, we can see that we have 1:22 until we get to Lake Jennings. It's 2.8 nautical miles away, and we have a good heading, and we're making 122 ground speed.
Southeast pad, taxiway Alpha at below 1,900 feet. Hazardous weather information within the San Diego area, available flight service frequencies. Advise on initial contact, you have information Kilo. Tower information Kilo, time 16530, Zulu observation, wind calm, visibility 10.
Let's go. Alright, about to be clear of the Bravo, and we're going to climb to 5,500. Alright, we're directly above Lake Jennings now, so we'll go ahead and turn to our next heading. Our heading's going to be 97. We're going to be pointed directly towards the town of Alpine. It should be a small town off the 8 that you can see. It's going to take us 5 nautical miles for this leg to get there. It's going to take us about 2.5 minutes to arrive, and our total flight time will be 13.5 minutes when we arrive there. Alright, on our Garmin we can see we have a heading of 96. It's calculating 3 minutes until we get there at this ground speed, and it's going to be 5.5 nautical miles. Alright, here comes 5,500. Alright, there's our altitude, 5,500. We'll throttle back to 23.
San Diego East traffic, Skyhawk 75733, 5,500. Going to be doing power on stalls over Alpine, San Diego East.
$6,500 feet because we're going to be on a northwesterly heading. We should arrive at Ramona at about 20 minutes of total flight time. The leg will be 12 nautical miles, which will take us about 6.5 minutes at this ground speed. And following making this turn, we're going to go ahead and terminate this flight for today, because more than likely this is where your DPE will say, okay, good job, you can clearly do pilotage and dead reckoning, you've demonstrated the skills perfectly, and now we can go on to something more fun like maneuvers. So I want to thank you today for joining me for this flight. I hope it's some useful information for some of the skills and knowledge items that you need to point out for your check ride. If this video helped you, please like and subscribe to the video, leave a comment, let us know how you do on your dead reckoning and pilotage whenever you take your check ride or practice mock check ride. So until next time, I hope all of you fly safe.